Well, thank you very much to the organizers, the people from the ministry who have taken part of this initiative, Calac, the Center of Energy. In the next few minutes, we are going to give you some background about the status of mobility in Chile at present. And from the three presentations, it would be the more general presentation, and then we will dwell into more specific presentations because they have done a specific work on data analysis and acquisition. Well, this is just as a reference. This is Chile at a glance. Some of you might not know Chile very well. It's a country of 18 million inhabitants, a GDP per capita of $22.7 million, 50% higher than the regional average, but 80% lower than the OECD countries. It has a sound institutional framework, a responsible tax policy that has allowed us to decrease poverty, which is an important aspect. These are some of the main industries. It is an exporting country of copper, fruit, vegetables. This is just as a reference for you. If you have any questions, please let us know. We also feel proud of our landscapes and our country. I know this is not the best moment to travel around countries, but if you wish and you can, you are kindly welcome to come and visit this beautiful country. But something we cannot get rid of as a country are three problems faced by the world, not only our country, but the world as a whole. This has to do with the health situation that the world is experiencing drastically from this crisis of the pandemic. This leads to economic, financial problems, loss of employment, inactivity of companies, of enterprises. This is something that has affected several countries, and we have to generate sound plans so we can overcome it. Something that this cartoon reflects in particular is that as a world, we are fighting against this so we can overcome this pandemic, but we have a less visible enemy, which also has a significant strength. International scientists show that this is something we need to address properly, and this has to do with climate change and the effects this brings about. In that regard, Chile committed in the middle of last year to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. This is one of the first countries that committed to this. This is not just a commitment, but there are a number of actions behind this that we estimate on how this is going to go about. What is worth underscoring here is that this has been analyzed as having positive cost-benefit effects. The net benefits are of around 40 billion, 37 billion US dollars, which is made up by an investment of $40 billion, but savings of up to $80 billion. This helps us understand these net benefits. Some measures are more cost-effective than others, but in aggregate values, these are the results. We want to underscore 5 topics which are going to be key to reach carbon neutrality. 4 of them have to do directly with energy. 1 of them has to do with forest management. And what we are going to highlight here is everything related to the transport sector and how electromobility plays a key role in this shift towards carbon neutrality and overall to a higher competitiveness and better benefit for the individual and their families. These are some figures that I would like to mention. The transport sector in Chile, the first thing I want to highlight is that 36% of energy consumption. This is a number which is quite similar in other parts of the world, but this corresponds to the transport sector. Many times we focus our energy discussions around electrical topics. We have to mention that 22% of energy consumptions have to do with the electrical sector. This shows how important it is to address energy efficiency and the transport emissions issue. In Chile and in most of the world, almost all the fuel uses are of fossil fuels, and in Chile, they are imported sources. In terms of greenhouse gases, they account for 24% of the total of greenhouse gases in the country. These are clear-cut numbers which show the importance of addressing the problems in this sector, and we believe that electromobility plays a key role given the benefits in terms of energy efficiency. It has been shown that they are 2 to 4 times more efficient than a conventional vehicle. This leads to less exhaust gas emissions, there's less noise in the cities, and there's also the reduction of greenhouse gases is a key topic. Perhaps here we can do a link. We can link this with another key topic, which is the decarbonization of the electrical grid. These are measures that need to be addressed in a combined manner. So we have the commitment of decarbonizing, or at least remove the carbon run power plants by a specific date. We also see a number of economic benefits, not only from the perspective of the opportunities, but later on we'll be able to look at direct savings for the users. The issue of sustainable transport and electromobility has a key priority in our work agenda. It has been mentioned in several occasions, not only in the agenda of this particular administration, but it has been reflected in a number of documents agreed upon, where we have the national energy policy that we launched at the end of 2017. As I mentioned before, within the framework of this government program, this is something that has been highlighted, and we have our eyes set on 2035, 2050 to reach our carbon neutrality. So these are some of the long-term goals that we have set. By 2050, we want to have zero emissions in our transport. And we have also seen that there are some commitments of advancing it in 10 years, so we can meet this goal by 2040. And we want to identify most of the private vehicles, and this means that the sale of electrical vehicles needs to go beyond this percentage by that year. So by 2040, we want to estimate that most of the sales of private or non-private vehicles can be electrical vehicles. In this energy route, I want to spend a couple of minutes explaining what we are doing and what has been done so far. As I said, the transportation plays a key role in our work plan, and overall, I can say that we have quite a holistic perspective of the development of electromobility in our country. This is not just about having most of this type of cars as soon as possible, but we have to create ecosystem poles. This will allow us to have an efficient, sustainable, and accelerated deployment of electromobility. In that regard, the first thing I would like to underscore, I know this is shown in a different color because it does not have to do necessarily with electromobility, but everything we are doing is sustainable and efficient electromobility. So we have implemented a system of labeling of energy efficiency for light duty and medium-sized vehicles. We always inform the user about the energy consumption and the emissions generated by these vehicles. We are also working and we are about to implement standards on energy efficiency for the vehicle fleet. This will demand and require traders and importers to meet these levels of average standards in their vehicle fleet. In tandem, we are also making progress in heavy-duty transport of trucks, lorries, buses, and we also want to be much more efficient, and we want to decarbonize maritime or sea transport. We have a couple of programs in this. In terms of regulation, it's important to have a regulation so we can move technology forward. Since last year, we signed a declaration of cargo infrastructure. They have to declare the different projects. This allows us to meet these safety standards that are becoming much more specific for safety. We have achieved this through participatory processes, public consultations. We have heard from the different stakeholders, so we will not just follow the general standards for the fixtures and facilities outdoors and indoors, but we want to develop more specific regulations such as the cargo infrastructure, which is very important. Interoperability. This is something that is becoming very important in Chile within the framework of the Energy Efficiency Act. There's a framework on that. For those of you who have not heard about the concept, this has to do on how developing a harmonious network that will allow us to have physical facilities, payment systems, communication that allows people to have free access to a more standardized networks, meeting all the necessary parameters so we won't have too many different things, which will not make this an efficient system. In terms of information and dissemination, we have an application called EcoCarga, which shows all the public recharge points set up in Chile in public facilities. So the user can identify where these charging points are. There is an electromobility platform. There you can see the link where you will find a lot of information about the guides, good practices, several examples, a calculator, several topics that allow the user to learn more about this technology in the understanding that currently there are many myths related to electromobility. Some of them are realities, of course, but it's important to properly inform the population around those topics. Some people in Chile still think that electromobility will not work if there's no charging station in each point of the city. We believe that these are different perspectives. Many times the recharge station works in houses, in offices, so these are issues we need to share with the citizenship. Actual measurements and fleet analysis, I will not dwell into this because my fellow panelists will talk more about this, and Calac has played a key role on this. As to infrastructure and integration of electrical systems, we are making progress on different studies about the capacity of the network. We have already discussed this at the international level with countries such as Canada, Norway, and others. We see that this is a problem that they do not have because of the robustness that the distribution networks have in those countries compared to that in Chile, because they have harsher winters, I don't know. But in Chile, we need to understand which are the places in the network that without raising the cost of the country, it makes more sense to install the charging points. For this, we need to estimate the demand of certain sites or places, but important work has been done, and this is relevant for Chile. Also, we should not only think about the cities, but we need to think how buses and vehicles are going to move in between cities and provinces. 1,000 kilometers of the country account for 70% of the inhabitants of the country through a red de carga or charging network. The first pilot vehicle to grid has been installed already. Can you still see my presentation?
Sí.
Let me move on to innovation and development. There's a consortium. I will briefly mention it in a minute. And the topic related to lithium and copper, they play a key role. We know that this has a lot to do with electromobility development, human capital development. This is a key issue in our agenda. We have set up tables, más capital humano plus human capital. They do not only address electromobility aspects, but they also address the energy needs for the present and the future situation. And we have engaged the academia, the public and the private sector. They sit around one same table so we can work in a more coordinated fashion, so we can provide training about the different needs. And electromobility, as I said, has played a key role in the discussion of these tables, and this has led to important commitments as well. Focus on public transportation and intensive use fleets. As I said, we have a widespread or holistic perspective. We have to work on supply and demand, I know, but we need to see where is the low-hanging fruit, so we can capitalize on those opportunities and speed up the development of the electromobility, so we can provide and offer this technology to all the users. So it's important to work on public sector, on public fleets, such as buses, trains. There are many uses related to public fleets. These are important candidates. The buses, not only in the public transport sector, but also private passenger transport and the industrial sector, and also operational fleets, commercial fleets, high route fleets, and also we consider light duty vehicles. Why have we identified this opportunity here? I have made this economic comparison of the purchase of an conventional vehicle versus an electrical vehicle. On the left-hand side, you have a vehicle that runs 5,000 kilometers per year and the other one 50,000 kilometers per year. It has been known, and here we can see in the blue bars that an electrical vehicle, even though it has a downward trend, this is more expensive than a conventional car. It is double the price of a conventional vehicle. So if you do not drive that much, it's a financial private decision, and this seems not to be the most rational decision that you made. If you consider other factors such as the benefits that we mentioned before, this could change. Nevertheless, under that same perspective, we see that when you drive more, this reverts, this changes, even though the costs of relationship between fuel and maintenance are much lower in electrical vehicles. Along with efficiency, we'll also need to consider the cost of the fuel. Because of that, this is only as a way of an example, but depending on how you plan it, if you want to use it over 35,000 kilometers, then it makes much more economic sense to move to an electrical vehicle. This is just as a reference. We have a program in working with heavy duty vehicles, along with the different companies that are planning to implement activities, electromobility activities in fleets or different products in their companies. We have an electromobility accelerator, which generates capacities and helps us in the execution or implementation of pilot projects. It has been quite successful in 2019, and we have received the support of the Energy Efficiency Agency. There's another program from the Ministry of Transport, which had invested, which is offering around $10,000 in subsidies for renewing taxes to electrical, so they can change for electrical vehicles, and the Banco Estado is offering a preferential interest rate. And this is being capitalized by the taxi drivers. There's a consortium on electromobility, which is going to offer $7 million for a consortium of institutions dedicated to fostering electromobility in the country, and there's a private co-funding. And if you wish, we can share more information about this. We believe that the role of Chile with this broad agenda has been underscored by different papers and publications. And this is one of my last points, the importance of public-private work. I mean, the government has indeed played a key role, and a lot of this has to do with the role played by the private sector in how to generate the foundations to move this forward. In the last few years, we have signed public-private agreements. The last one was signed with 57 institutions that are shown here, and you can see that we have several financial companies represented, vehicle-related companies, candidates who wish to have fleets, car brands, guilds, unions, different groups were engaged in this, and they have had an active participation. And I just want to share our future vision, the need to foster an energy modernization in our country, so we will not just adapt to the technological changes, but we can also speed up its development and become a benchmark regionally and globally around these topics. And something that is very important and we always highlight, and I would like to wrap it up now, the citizen participation. This needs to, the citizen trademark, this needs to be critical throughout our actions, because at the end of the day, we should not forget that we are working for them, so we can improve the quality of living of these citizens in our country and in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, Gabriel.